Hello Kin 163 students, almost toward the end of the semester, and this is chapter 6, which is the last or the fifth component of fitness that we mentioned in the beginning of the semester. So this is the last one, and then we will have another chapter which is very brief about program design. So what is body composition? It is the body's relative amounts of fat and fat-free mass, and it is an important component of fitness for health and wellness. People with an optimal body composition tend to be healthier, to move more efficiently, and to feel better about themselves, their looks. So they also have a lower risk of many chronic diseases. Therefore, it is an important component of fitness that we need to focus on. Many people, however, do not succeed in their efforts to obtain a fit and healthy body because they set unrealistic goals and emphasize short-term weight loss rather than permanent lifestyle changes that lead to fat loss and a healthy body composition. Again, that's the culture of our society. We just want the results in the shortest way possible without putting any effort and time in it. Successful management of body composition requires the long-term, consistent coordination of many aspects of a wellness program. That's what we're trying to teach you. So you can see the big picture to create a realistic long-term fitness goal or a SMART goal that you can adhere to for the rest of your life. Even in the absence of changes in body composition, an active lifestyle improves wellness, we all know by now, and decreases the risk of disease and premature death. Okay, the outline will include being able to define fat-free mass and body fat and describe their functions in the body, and how body composition affects overall health and wellness. And then we're going to talk about some of the concepts of body composition measures like the BMI and general body composition and body fat assessments, and then explain how to determine recommended body weight and body fat distribution, and then the problems related to having an unhealthy body composition such as obesity, metabolic disease or syndrome, and diabetes. And of course we will mention the FIT formula for weight loss as well. The human body can be divided into fat-free mass and body fat. Body composition is not the same thing as body weight. That's what we're going to try to show you here. As defined in chapter 2, fat-free mass comprises all the body's non-fat tissues such as bone, water, muscle, connective tissue, organ tissues, and teeth. And body fat is just the fat mass in the body, and we will refer to it as BF or FM, and that's what you will see in the studies as well. Body weight, however, is the weight reflected on the bathroom scale. So the body weight, as you can see from the picture here, will include everything, fat and non-fat tissues. That is called a two-component model when we assess body composition, two-component representing body fat and fat-free mass. But the body weight will not give any information regarding how much of the weight comes from fat or non-fat tissues. What is body fat? Body fat is incorporated into the nerves, brain, heart, lungs, liver, mammary glands, and other body organs and tissues. A certain amount of body fat is necessary for the body to function. It is the main source of stored energy in the body, as we looked at the amount in the energy chapter and saw that it's abundant. It also cushions body organs and helps regulate body temperature. This essential fat makes up about 3 to 5% of total body weight in men and about 8 to 12% in women. That is the fat that is necessary and incorporated in various tissues. The percentage is higher in women due to fat deposits in the breasts, uterus, and other gender-specific sites. Most of the fat in the body is stored in fat cells, or, in other words, adipose tissue, located under the skin. That is the subcutaneous fat, and around major organs. It is called the visceral fat or intra-abdominal fat. People have a genetically determined number of fat cells, but these cells can become larger or smaller depending on how much fat is being stored. The amount of stored fat depends on several factors, including age, gender, metabolism, diet, and activity level. The primary source of excess body fat is excess calories consumed in the diet. That is, the calories consumed beyond what are expended in metabolism, physical activity, and exercise. When looking at body composition, the most important consideration is the proportion of body's total weight that is fat. It is called percent body fat. In other words, the percentage of total body weight that is composed of fat. Based on the principle that weight should be proportional to height, the research world has come up with this measure called BMI, Body Mass Index. That is a person's weight in kilograms divided by the square of height in meters. That's the CDC, Center for Disease Control's definition. And that's the formula. So as you can see, the formula has only two variables, weight and height. Again, we don't know how much of that weight comes from fat or non-fat tissues. A high BMI can be an indicator of high body fatness. BMI can be used to screen for weight categories, as you can see on this categorization chart by WHO, World Health Organization. And that may lead to health problems, but it is not diagnostic of the body fatness or health of an individual. It is fairly accurate measure of health risks for the average person, but can be very inaccurate for some groups, such as short stature people, muscular athletes, because muscle weighs heavier than the fat tissue, and which will increase the body weight, and resistance trained individuals with the same principle. Used for large population studies, BMI is used for large population studies. Very very handy when it comes to comparing two groups, for example, the East Coast and the West Coast, and to see if there's any differences between their BMIs. That's a good measure to use. When we look at the statistics, we see that more than 60% of American adults have BMI greater than 25. As you can see, greater than 25 indicates being overweight, and then greater than 30 indicates obese, and 40 extremely obese. So the healthy range varies between 18.5 to 24.9. So, like we said, body weight and body composition are not the same things. As seen in the picture, people with the same weight, these are all women weighing 70 kilograms or 154 pounds, can have different body composition, hence looks. As you can see, all these women weigh the same, but their BMIs are pretty different. So is their body fat percentage. So the difference between being overweight and obese, when we look at the definition of being an overweight individual, overweight is the body weight that falls above the recommended range for good health. And again, BMI can be used to define overweight, and it is the number or body mass index between 25 and 29.9, and a measure of proportion of weight to height. Obesity is being severely overweight and characterized by an excessive accumulation of body fat. So when we look at obese individuals, their body mass index are definitely 30 or more. This is important. We're going to talk about the prevalence of obesity in the United States. These percentages come from National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey. And as you can see, American adults are categorized between overweight and obese. So 69% of American adults are overweight and 36% are obese. So the cost is greater than $100 billion annually. 5 to 10% of healthcare costs spent on obesity-related conditions all over, primarily associated with cardiovascular diseases and cancer that are, again, obesity-related. Obese have overall mortality rate almost twice that of non-obese. And we see premature deaths greater than 300,000, unfortunately. And this is calculated for Caucasian males and females, 20 to 30 years of age. And severe levels of obesity may shorten life by 13 and 8 years respectively. So 13 years for males and 8 years for females. It is estimated if all Americans had a healthy body composition, the incidence of cardiorespiratory diseases would decrease by greater than 24%. That is a big improvement. So let's look at the cardiovascular diseases. American Heart Association and World Health Organization, they both classified obesity as a major risk factor. In the past, it wasn't a major risk factor, and now it is classified as a major risk factor, even as a disease. It is associated with increased blood lipids, hypertension, development of type 2 diabetes. We will look into that. Obesity is associated with accelerated coronary atherosclerosis, associated with increased risk of death from some cancers, and type 2 diabetes, and reported that adipose tissue secretes resistin and leptin. These are hormones, and they might induce insulin resistance, therefore causing type 2 diabetes. May confer more psychological and social problems than physical problems at a young age, although at higher risk for diabetes even at a younger age. So when we look at the kids, we see that the childhood obesity is on the rise, and it is likely that if a child is obese, they're likely to stay overweight or obese in their adulthood. So it seems that prevention is far superior to treatment. And, you know, looking at the costs annually, it would be much better to prevent them from happening with lifestyle choices, change in the lifestyle choices, and also prevention. What would be the reason to see the increased prevalence? So it has grown from 13% in 1960 to 36% today. Of course, when we see the lifestyle that we lead, it is more time spent in sedentary work and leisure activities like watching TV, more short trips by car than walking, fewer daily physical education classes for students, unfortunately, more meals eaten outside the home, of course, fast foods, portion sizes, that has been increasing greatly, and increased soft drinks and convenience foods, which is actually increased sugar intake. So this is a trend for US adults age 20 and older, and youth ages 2 to 19, from 1999 to 2014. So the blue is the youth and the orange is the adults, and it's on the rise, as you can see. Now we're going to talk about the problems that are associated with excess body fat and wellness. And the first one is diabetes, also called diabetes mellitus. It is a disease that disrupts normal metabolism and the sugar metabolism or carbohydrates. Normally, the pancreas secretes this hormone called insulin, and it stimulates the cells to take up glucose that is in the blood sugar and to be stored in your liver, muscle, as we talked about. So diabetes interferes with this process, causing a buildup of glucose in the bloodstream, which should not be in a normal case. Overweight is associated with a substantial increase in the risk of type 2 diabetes. So type 1 is actually an autoimmune disease, and in this case, the pancreas produces little or no insulin. Okay, and only 5 to 10% of all the cases in the world are type 1 diabetes, not the majority. In this case, daily doses of insulin are required and other medications just to control blood sugar levels at a consistent level, and other complications of the disease may also be necessary. Usually strikes before age 30. That's why it is sometimes it comes at birth. That's why it is considered to be an autoimmune disease. In the type 2 diabetes, this is acquired, and it's also called adult onset of diabetes. And when we look at all the cases in the world, we see that 90 to 95% of all the cases are type 2 diabetes, which is very unfortunate because this is the only type that is preventable. Type 1 is not preventable. This one is preventable by, again, decisions that we make every day. So this can develop very slowly, and about 25% of all the affected individuals are unaware of their condition. If you take your blood work, if you get your blood work done at a hospital, if your fasting blood sugar is high, that means that you are prone to having a type 2 diabetes. And those normative data is available on the internet, and I'm not going to discuss that here for the sake of this class. In this case, the pancreas normally produces enough insulin, but the cells are resistant to the insulin. But in very little percentage, or in very little amount that you see in type 2 diabetes, the pancreas doesn't produce enough insulin, but the majority is. The cells are resistant. That's why it's called insulin resistance. Yes, there is enough insulin to go into the cell and take away the extra blood sugar to put it away into the storages, but this mechanism cannot work. Usually it is diagnosed in people over age 40, plus tenfold increase in children in the past 2 decades. Unfortunately, now we see it in kids too. About 1/3 of people must take insulin because of why this is happening, but the others may not take medications that increase insulin production or stimulate cells to take up glucose. Like I just mentioned, prediabetes is the condition where your blood glucose levels are higher than normal, but not high enough for a diagnosis of full-blown diabetes. 2014 estimate from the American Diabetes Association, 86 million Americans have prediabetes and they're not aware, 25% like we talked about. Most people with the condition will develop type 2 diabetes unless they adopt preventive lifestyle measures like we learn in this class. So these are the conditions that are associated with having diabetes: kidney failure, because of the circulation problems, your blood being so thick and having high viscosity. You will have circulation problems, therefore nerve damage, kidney failure, retinal damage and blindness, increased rates of heart attack, stroke, and hypertension. As you can imagine, we looked at the reasons of having hypertension. One was having a high viscosity blood, and this is causing that factor. Again, currently the 7th leading cause of death in the United States. 90% of people with type 2 are overweight, and 55% are obese when diagnosed. What is the cure? Regular physical activity. Make sure to combine endurance and strength training, because they both together synergically make cells more sensitive to insulin. So it's going to increase the insulin sensitivity, thereby reducing insulin resistance, thereby stabilizing blood glucose or sugar levels. A moderate diet that you learned in the nutrition portion of this class. Very specifically though, I would like to emphasize again, reduce sugar intake, because your body is not able to put it away to the storages, and you don't want to increase or add into the problem. Modest weight loss, and the studies show us that 5 to 7% weight loss can lower diabetes onset by nearly 60%. Another problem associated with being overweight or obesity, metabolic syndrome. It is a cluster. We looked at this briefly in the cardiovascular health chapter, but let's review it again. That is a cluster of symptoms present in many overweight and obese people. And this is going to greatly increase their risk of heart disease, diabetes, and other chronic illnesses. Therefore, we have this condition already labeled. What is that? It is called metabolic syndrome, or metabolic X, and it is diagnosed if a person has at least 3 of the 5 key risk factors. What are those risk factors? Again, I would like you to remember the fifth one specifically, because they're not looking at the bad cholesterol, but the good cholesterol being low, because it's your protector. And other risk factors are large waistline, fat deposits in the abdominal region, imposing a high risk for cardiovascular risk factors, high blood pressure, high fasting blood sugar due to insulin resistance, not for type 1, or high triglycerides in your blood, and then low HDL, or the good cholesterol. The conditions associated with metabolic syndrome include chronic inflammation and fatty liver. Fatty liver doesn't mean that that person is a fat individual, but their liver is covered by fat, or increased fat storage in the liver, and can lead to liver inflammation and failure, which is very fatal. Chronic inflammation is a response of blood vessels to such harmful substances as germs, damaged cells, or irritants. It's chronic and can lead to heart disease, more so in men than women, and cancer, allergies, and muscle degeneration. American Heart Association states that nearly 34% of adult Americans have metabolic syndrome, which is very sad. So as I mentioned as a risk factor in the previous slide, having your fat stored in the midsection is a risk factor, because it's called android or male pattern or apple pattern, as you see in this picture. More visceral fat, meaning intra-abdominal fat, because of abdomen or midsection having your vital organs, including your heart, including your lungs, liver, and having a lot of fat stored in this region in the body poses a higher risk of weight-related health problems. Okay, the other one is called gynoid or female pattern or pear shape, easiest to remember. As you can see, the fat is stored below the waist in the hips, buttocks, and thighs, but less visceral fat in the midsection, which is good in terms of cardiovascular health. More resistant to change, though, but having a pear shape is superior to having an apple shape, but we can't really change this. We see the apple shape predominantly in males and also postmenopausal women. Body fat distribution and health, again, we use waist circumference to indicate or define what this individual is in terms of their body fat distribution. So waist circumference is the circumference measurement around a person's waist, and if it is greater than 40 inches in males, or if it is greater than 35 inches for females, it is considered high risk. Also, there is another easy method that is used, waist to height ratio. It should be less than 50%. So your waist circumference needs to be lower than half of your height. This tends to be higher in taller people. That's why we use the waist to height ratio to put it in more perspective. Waist to hip ratio is another measure that we use, again, to see body fat distribution and thereby the risk factor for cardiovascular diseases. It's also called gut to butt ratio. It should be less than 0.94 for males and less than 0.82 for females, and it's basically just dividing your waist circumferences by your hip circumference. So example, 40-inch waist and 36-inch hips will give you a 1.1, which is a great risk for cardiorespiratory or cardiovascular health. Now let's look at the very low levels of body fat. When we have less than the essential amount of fat in the body, we will run into reproductive, circulatory, respiratory, and immune system disorders. And these are also linked to the eating disorders. And one example is a female athlete triad that manifests itself with 3 major problems. One is disordered eating and excessive exercising. The other one is amenorrhea, which is losing menstrual cycles, and decreased bone density. And this will lead to premature or very early osteoporosis in these female athletes. It is very prevalent in sports in which appearance is important, such as gymnastics, figure skating, or cheerleading. Also, sports in which athletes wear contour revealing clothing for competition, such as swimming. And also those athletes that run in distance competitions, like distance runners, or some athletes or sports that use weight categories such as wrestling and judo. Untreated, female athlete triad may lead to decreased performance, increased bone fractures, cardiac dysarrhythmias, and even death. It is very important because of the essential fat being very critical for some functions in the body, as discussed previously. So, desirable body fat is required for health, appearance, and performance. If overweight, very small changes in body weight, such as 5 to 15% reduction, can have significant health benefits. Maintaining physically active lifestyle may be more important than meeting a specific body weight goal. If used, goals must be realistic, healthy, and reasonable. Appearance is another motivation to have a desirable body fat. If the perception of the appearance is accurate, it's a personal choice. And the performance, for example, in athletes, excess weight may be advantageous in contact sports or to maintain stability in sports like football, sumo wrestling, but or long distance swimming. Excess fat is used as an energy resource, but for some sports, excess fat is disadvantage when body must be moved rapidly, such as jumping, ballet, gymnastics, and running. So these are the health body fat percent categories, and I would like you to remember these for both men and women. Minimal is 5% for men and 8 to 12% for women. Therefore, we need to be able to maintain our body fat percent near this if we are athletes. Low is considered to be 13 to 20 for females, 6 to 7 for men. Health and fitness is where we want to be. Actually, above average, we should be avoiding these numbers, and obese is considered to be greater than 35 for women and 25 for men. So, how do we assess body fat percentage? How do we measure it? Actually, we cannot really measure it directly. So we just estimate it through some methods that we use. That's why we call it assessment. One of them is called underwater or hydrostatic weighing, as you see in this picture. An individual is submerged and weighed underwater, and the method or the science that is used here is the body density, because percentage of the density of water and density of muscle and or fat-free mass is greater than the water's density, and they won't float, and therefore the percentage of fat and fat-free weight is calculated from body density. Hydrostatic weighing, standard error is nearly 2 to 2.5%. Approximately 68% of individuals will have body fat within 2 to 2.5% of value obtained. That's the measurement error. Another method is called the bod pod. It's a small chamber containing computerized sensors, and it measures body composition by air displacement through body volume. Okay, not the body density, and in this case, the body volume is used to assess body fat percentage. It determines the percentage of fat by calculating body density from how much air is displaced by the person sitting inside the chamber. Other methods include skin folds, BIA, and scanning methods. Skin folds measure subcutaneous fat, and the assumption is subcutaneous fat is a good representation of your overall or visceral fat. And the error percent is 3 to 4. It just measures the thickness of skin folds. That's why it's called skin fold, using a caliper. Caliper, as you can see in this picture, it's a pressure sensitive material or an instrument with 2 jaws that can be adjusted to determine thickness of the skin fold. BIA, or bioimpedance analysis, is actually just sending a small electrical current, okay, through the body and measuring the body's resistance to it. Okay, so what it measures is the resistance, because fat-free tissues where most body water is located, like nearly 70% is water, and in the fat tissue less than 10% is water. These fat-free mass or tissues are good conductors of electrical current, whereas fat is not. So it just measures the resistance to the flow of that electrical current and has an error rate about 4 to 5%. And a scanning method is also called DEXA, or dual energy X-ray absorptiometry. Works by measuring the tissue absorption of passing a body through a magnetic field. Okay, these methods are often used in sophisticated research projects but are seldom available to the average person. Okay, let's say we did the assessment tests and they indicate that fat loss would be beneficial for your health. Your first step is to establish a goal. That's what we're going to do for the extra credit assignment too, if this is required, of course. If you are significantly over fat, or if you have known risk factors for disease, consult your physician to determine a body composition goal for your individual risk profile. Decide whether the body weight that the formulas generate for you is realistic, meets all your goals, is healthy, and is reasonable for you to maintain. If you look at the picture, we see that when you lose weight, you really reduce the size of your fat cells, but there's no change in the number of cells. This person loses weight here in the second picture, but if you were to count all these particles, okay, the number is 75 billion, and here in the second stage there's still 75 billion, and on the third, when they lost a significant amount of weight, there's still 75 billion. So what we do when we lose weight is actually reducing the size of the fat cells that are already there. 1 pound of fat is equal to 3,500 kilocalories, and recommended or safe weight loss ratio or rate is 1 or 2 pounds per week. Heredity limits your capacity to change your body composition, and few people can expect to develop the body of a fashion model or competitive bodybuilder. However, you can improve your body composition through a program of regular exercise and a healthy diet. If your body composition is in or close to the recommended range, you may just want to set a lifestyle goal rather than a specific percent body fat or BMI goal. For example, you can set a goal of increasing your daily physical activity from 20 minutes to 60 minutes, or beginning a program of weight training, and etc. So if you were to lose weight or lose body fat, this is what is recommended. You just create a negative caloric balance or deficit. Decrease the caloric intake by 500 to 1,000 kcals per day. Okay, so if you multiply 500 by 7, the days in a week, you will end up getting this number, 3,500 kilocalories, which is equal to 1 pound of fat. If you do 500 deficit, you'll be losing 1 pound of fat every week, and if you do 1,000, you will be losing 2 pounds of fat. And it is recommended to divide this number into 2 and do 250 from diet and 250 from physical exercise. Spot reducing is not possible. Some of you did your consumer product assignment on some of the products that claimed abdominal fat reduction, like the slender tone. So we now know from science that spot reduction is not possible. So we just have to believe and acknowledge that exercise burns calories in general, not from specific parts of the body. Danish researchers show that fat use increases in adipose tissue surrounding active muscle, but probably contributes to fat loss by burning kilocalories overall. So cardiorespiratory exercise is most effective at burning calories, and resistance exercise increases your muscle mass as well as your resting metabolic rate, which contributes to the majority of your daily energy expenditure. So combining both of the exercise methods, cardio and resistance training, is the best way to change your body composition. Also, introducing exercise into your life has other health benefits. We already looked at them previously, but let's review them. Physical activity is the key to maintaining weight loss, and it seems that it is more important than physical fitness. Avoid prolonged sitting, And one study showed that TV or computer 4 hours or 4+ hours a day doubles the risk of having metabolic syndrome compared to less than an hour a day. Right now we have to be stuck at home and, you know, just in front of our computers. So if we must use a computer for prolonged periods, we have to take breaks, change positions, standing desks, maybe treadmill and bike workstations. So independent of weight loss, we know that exercise and physical activity improves your blood pressure, glucose, lipid profile, improves body fat distribution, lowers risk of cardiovascular diseases, diabetes, premature death, and of course, by enhancing insulin sensitivity, it reduces metabolic syndrome. So the FIT principle, actually, as you can see, the frequency is 5 to 7 days a week. And I also said everyday health. So these are your decisions that you make every single day. How much did I move today? Or how much am I going to move today? It doesn't have to be exercise, organized and structured, but you really have to pay attention to your physical activity levels. And you know, specifically for weight loss or fat loss, it is recommended to keep it at lower intensity, 45 to 60 plus minutes to burn 300 plus kilocalories, and combine aerobic and resistance training. So this is just one example. If you were walking 4 miles per hour for an average individual who weighs 150 pounds, is equal to 6.4 kilocalories per minute. So to burn 3,500 kilocalories, which is equal to 1 pound of fat, you need to walk 9 hours. So if you were to walk 45 minutes, it's going to burn 288 calories. So if you were to walk 4 days a week for 45 minutes, in a year you will be losing more than 17 pounds. How about weight gain? We already talked about the weight loss, but we didn't talk about weight gain. So it takes diet and exercise as well as genetics. We cannot change our genetics. The amount of hormones that are anabolic in our body is not going to change. So genetics is one factor. Diet that is comprised of carbohydrates and protein, because carbohydrates, as we now know, that it's the training fuel, and we have to replenish glycogen stores by eating carbohydrates, and protein is important to build muscle tissue. And you know, for a person who is heavily involved in resistance training, it is recommended to ingest up to 2 grams per kilogram of body weight per day. And of course, resistance training has to be there in the picture to increase muscle mass. And research shows us that initial gains will always exceed the subsequent gains. So we have to be patient. That's all I'm going to cover for this chapter. Thank you for listening.